Despite us never truly seeing the event, besides potentially warped memories and abstract minigames, the MCI, or Missing Children's Incident, still takes the place as the cornerstone of Five Nights at Freddy's lore, with it being the original mystery uncovered all the way back in the first game via a series of rare newspaper clippings. These newspapers are where everything began, where we first learned of the 5 children that were lured, killed, and stuffed into the animatronics by a man in a mascot costume. But the newspapers continued the story from there, telling us that police identified the man responsible via video surveillance, and that he was charged and convicted for the children's disappearance and probable murder. Years later, we know who the man responsible is, William Afton. But along with that, we also know he has places he needs to be for important story beats to occur, which means William needs to be a free man and therefore can't be convicted, because in this case that's definitely jail time. So that then poses the question, who was blamed for the MCI? Welcome back, fellow Freddy fans and other peoples of the internet. My name is James, and today I aim to answer just that. This is a simpler, but I still think important video, with some points I think are important to highlight for FNAF in general. With that said, let's go ahead and focus on the question at hand. Who was blamed for the MCI? Our suspect list for this particular video focuses on 2 individuals. The first suspect obviously being William. There's a lot to unpack here, plenty of evidence for and against him being blamed for the MCI in the games. To start with the for evidence, across all of the continuities we know are separate from the game's timeline, he is the only person we get solid confirmation was actually arrested and seriously accused for the MCI. Quote, "We did arrest someone. I did, in fact. And I'm as sure now that he was guilty as I was then." So what happened? There were no bodies. We knew it was him, there was no doubt in my mind, but the children had disappeared. They were never found, and without the bodies. William was arrested and brought in, but it couldn't be proven, so he was released and free to come back one day under an alias, Dave Miller. I think this can pretty safely be carried over to the movie's timeline as well, with William taking the alias of Steve Raglan. While being undercover as a career counselor is definitely a lot harder to suspend my disbelief for than an abandoned mall security guard, the fact that he needs to have an alias at all makes me think that something along the same lines as the novels occurred in the movie timeline. At the very least, we have a consistent pattern of him not being able to use the Afton name post-MCI. And if this carries over to the games, then it becomes extremely helpful in establishing key timeline placements, specifically when the sister location intro happens, where he's called Mr. Afton. Going from there, we have very sound reasoning now for him to go from being a co-owner for Freddy's to suddenly being a night guard during FNAF 2, why he's sneaking around in Follow Me while the building is in a decrepit state. He doesn't really have a reason to do any of that unless he's forced to. Overall, this just works for me. It's neat and clean and it's tidy. It really explains a lot. I mean, what more could you really ask for from this franchise? But those last 2 appearances from our purple friend also end up falling into the against category. If William is the person the newspapers refer to as the suspect, then he was convicted, which means he should be in jail. Could he be on the run, potentially hiding from the police? Escaped from prison, and that's why he's undercover and saved them and Follow Me? Perhaps, but in a series that has possessed animatronics, VR games that can body swap with you, and Phasgoo, that for some reason actually feels a little too fantastical. Okay, have I ticked you off enough yet? I know exactly what you're thinking, so I'll just say it. Nothing was ever proven in a court of law. If you don't know where that comes from, let me point you to FNAF Help Wanted. It's one of the many messages you can get during the game over screens. And up to this point in the series, the only 2 things that this would really apply to would be the MCI, and maybe DCI I suppose, and a bunch of dead night guards. Basically, this is telling us that a conviction could not have happened because nothing was proven in court. Because I think that one newspaper headline has been retconned. In fact, I think it is the retcon Scott was referencing in his Reddit post back on September 4th, 2017, which many people will point out is before Pizzeria Simulator came out. While Scott's rules about what a retcon actually is are honestly a little strange, this absolutely falls into the category of a blatant retcon. And this cleanly brings us to our next suspect on the list, Henry. One reason many have chosen Henry to be the person to take the blame for the MCI is to allow the conviction line to not be the retcon, which I totally understand. That way, other things have the ability to be the retcon. But another reason that people will say is because it helps explain his absence up until FNAF 6. The logic works going back to the novels, that Henry was initially suspected before they focused in on William, so perhaps in the games, Henry was suspected but convicted, and after years of false imprisonment, Henry would then be released once new evidence arose pointing at William, thus allowing Henry to formulate the pizzeria simulator and then burning everything down. It's honestly a really cool narrative. I like the idea, and I've wanted it to be true before, but I've always had one huge, pretty big issue with it. It really doesn't explain his absence. Not really. Okay, let's just say Henry was convicted and sent to jail. William is a free man. After William succeeds in dodging murder, he makes the stupidest decision of all time and completely incriminates himself by committing another set of public murders literally 2 years later at another Freddy's. Sure, William is undercover, so they wouldn't immediately connect it to him, but the fact that Henry is in jail means it can't be him, which means, in my mind, he would probably be released afterwards. So where would Henry be after 1987? Or better yet, where is he in FNAF 4 at Fredbear's? And ultimately, this is the big killer of this theory for me. If we follow the logic of the novels, even if they never zeroed in on William, Henry would still not be convicted because they don't have enough evidence. The more likely answer for Henry's absence is probably because he just was not important for those specific story moments. Just like Elizabeth in FNAF 4, or, to open a fresh wound of mine, why she's not there in Midnight Motorist. I learned big time from that minigame, a lesson I thought I knew already, but I guess I needed a reminder. As much as I love FNAF and its strange, complicated goofiness, sometimes things are just as straightforward as they seem. I believe that the conviction line in FNAF 1 was retconned, either to allow more story to happen or due to just not double-checking the meaning of the word. It doesn't matter. And I believe William Afton was in fact singled out as the prime suspect of the MCI. And I think it's important that we know that because it affects so much of the timeline as we understand it. I think we have a lot of answers to this series, but we just maybe need to be more open to them. But honestly, I wouldn't mind if we took our time on that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the chance to be making anything like I am right now, so perhaps just ignore absolutely everything I just said. I would like to do this for a while. I'd rather sit here and discuss or even argue about FNAF with you guys on the internet than a lot of other things in the real world out there. You guys enable me, so thank you. If you've made it to the end of the video, firstly, just once again, thank you so much for watching me and just being here. But secondly, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We are very close to hitting 2,000 subscribers, which is crazy, but I would like to hit that before the end of the year. That's my personal goal. Please go ahead and share your thoughts about this video in the comments below, or just comment anything else about FNAF. Maybe I'll find it interesting and respond back to you. I always try to make an effort to read everybody's comments, even if you're just saying hi. But for now, bye everybody.